Legal methods are very important during the process of authoritarian consolidation. This isn't about the use of brute force, but rather the slightly more subtle changes that are made to laws, institutions, and to personnel. As Walter Ulbricht, the post-war leader of East Germany, explained to his Communist Party colleagues,
and gradually take over the whole situation, but not at once. We should already prepare for building up the police. The man for personnel, who changes personnel. The man for education. So we were flabbergasted. We only 3 or 4 comrades, and everybody else is social democrats and bourgeois democrats and so on. So one of us asked and said, it must look democratic, but we must have everything in our hands.
the first thing a newly authoritarian state does is change the laws. New laws might be imposed by decree or through declaring emergency martial law, but the goal is the same. The fundamental human rights central to liberal democracy are gradually weakened. The right to express political opinions might be limited, or the right to privacy curtailed. These laws are often justified as the temporary measures that are introduced in time of crisis.
I declare before all Italy that I assume full responsibility for what has happened. Italy wants peace and quiet, and to get on with its work. I shall give it all these, if possible in love, but if necessary by force. In the 48 hours after my speech, the whole situation will be changed.
The January 1925 speech is the revelatory moment when fascism embarks upon the path towards dictatorship and the totalitarian state. He does it through a series of laws which eliminate the opposition deputies from parliament, which increasingly censors the press, which ultimately in 1926 leads to the dissolution of non-fascist parties and non-fascist trade unions, to the structures being put into place of a police state and a one-party state.
But it is the erosion of the rule of law that is most significant in the authoritarian state. The individual might be arrested and held for an indefinite period of time without access to a lawyer and without the right to a fair trial. In prison, they might be denied basic rights and subject to physical and psychological abuse and even torture. In this way, vocal critics, those capable of influencing others, are silenced and potential opposition is stifled.
Ich wurde ja dann in den Bunker eingeliefert und angekettet. Da brauchte er einen Teller, da lagen Weißwürste drauf und Brettchen. Und da sagte er, das wäre eine schöne, das hat er mir so hingehalten, das wäre eine schöne Henkersmahlzeit für dich. Aber selbst die bist du nicht wert, du Schurke. Wir wissen von dir sehr viel. Wir wissen, dass du in Prag gewesen bist und so weiter. Wir werden schon noch fertig mit dir. Und dann hat er mir das nochmal so rüber, weg, zugeklappt und war schneller wieder fort, war nichts zu essen. Und dann kam er noch einmal mit einem Strick und hat mir zeigen wollen, wie man sich am besten aufhängt.
Over time, how law is made also changes. In a dictatorship, there is no real separation between the powers of the executive and the legislature, nor is there an independent judiciary which can strike down legislation as unconstitutional. In addition, new institutions are created to make it even easier for the authoritarian state to govern. The process of consolidation varies from state to state, but in general terms, authoritarian consolidation means gradually replacing the power of existing state institutions with newly created authoritarian institutions. In communist states, the traditional institutions and sources of power, presidents, prime ministers and parliaments, might continue to exist, but a new state emerges in which real power is concentrated in the Communist Party and its hierarchy. The most important figure in a communist state is the General Secretary of the Communist Party, not a president or a prime minister. The classic analysis of this dual state was provided by Ernst Fraenkel in his Concepts of Normative and Prerogative State, in which he analysed how power was consolidated by Hitler in Nazi Germany. And Frankl distinguished between the normative state that the Nazis inherited within ministries and civil service, local authorities, laws and conventions, and the prerogative state, a new system that derived its legitimacy entirely from the will of Hitler and his acolytes. For example, when Hitler failed to get the convictions he wanted at the Reichstag fire trial, he ordered the creation of people's courts, which had jurisdiction over a wide range of political offences and a tendency to punish much more severely.
The principal procedure governing German law during the Third Reich was something called the Führerprinzip. And the idea was that Hitler had absolute discretion to make any ruling whatsoever in the interests of the state, and that there were lesser or subordinate Führers who also followed the Führerprinzip and themselves had wide discretion, limited only by what the Führer above them had told them to do.
Early in their subversion of law, Nazi officials established special courts to deal with anyone the party deemed an enemy of the Reich. In these courts, there was no pretrial investigation. Judges determined arbitrarily what evidence to consider, and there was no right of appeal. Once he succeeded in concentrating legal authority into his own hands, Hitler then had the tools for eliminating all those he deemed to be enemies of the Reich.
The traditional courts continued to do their job, just as you would expect in the normative state. But the people's courts politicized the judiciary, and that was the prerogative state. As well as changing the laws and the institutions that exercise power, the final legal method employed by authoritarian states concerns the appointment of those people who will run those institutions. Controlling who can exercise authority allows the state to reward loyalty and punish dissent. Individuals are not appointed or promoted because of their ability alone, but because of their personal or ideological suitability. And once these suitable individuals are appointed, they have a significant vested interest in supporting the regime. Appointing sympathetic judges, police commissioners, and senior civil servants will help reinforce the political and ideological prejudices of the regime, and those powerful individuals will in turn appoint other individuals who resemble them. For the ambitious citizen looking to get on, being appointed, being promoted, and exercising power means looking and sounding like those in power. Patronage and nepotism therefore become a means not only of consolidating authoritarian rule, it also becomes essential to its long-term maintenance of power.